Internet world, we're here today to talk about the highly anticipated 2019 Audi Q3. And I'm going to compare it to Audi's bestseller, the 2019 Audi Q5. We're here today in beautiful London, Ontario, where Audi London has graciously given us these cars for the day to test and try and see the differences that I feel and we feel on the brand new 2019 Audi Q3. Let's jump in and bring it to your face. All right, so I'm going to jump in this video. I'm not going to talk about engine. I'm going to talk about the most important thing on what I believe the new Q3 has, and that is size. So let's get into it and figure out the difference between size of the new Q3 versus the Q5. So first things first, I'm going to talk about the trunk. So let's get in the trunk and see the dimensions of the trunk of the new Audi Q3. And what do we have? So one of the things they did change about the Q3 is they allowed the back seats to recline forward and backward, or sorry, to slide forward and backward. But right to the edge there, I have 35 inches. And let's compare that to the Q5. All right, so right in the back here on the Q5, we have just about 37.5 inches, which is basically 2.5 inches longer in a Q5 than it is a Q3. But the Q3, the back seats do extend forward, so we can probably get those 2 inches. So I'm gonna slide these seats forward. I'm gonna pull these seats forward. Wow, they really do come forward. Now I basically got no leg room, but let's see if we can get those 2 inches on the back to match up to the Q5. You have 41.5, and let's compare it again to a Q5. And in a Q5 we have 38. So you can get 4 inches more in a Q3 than you can a Q5. Wow. So I'm gonna bring the back seats forward in a Q5 now and see how much room we can get in a Q5. So the Q5 seats don't actually go as far forward than the Q3 seats do for some weird reason. Maybe I think another ½ inch or so the Q3 seems to get. So let's go in the back here and see what the Q5 does. So I had 41.5 inches. And in a Q5 I have, wow, 41.5 inches. So the maximum depth you get in a Q3 versus the maximum depth you get in a Q5 are identical with both seats forward all the way back. Wow. So in comparing these sizes, one thing I did notice here is potential build quality. So on the back of a Q3, you'll see the back sliders there are exposed. And if we go look at a Q5 there, they are covered. All right, so we're in the back of a Q3, and since we're talking about size and build quality, kind of in the same motion, I want to talk about this back rear seat. Now, as we talked about it does slide backwards and forward, the rear bench, and it does move quite a bit forward to get more trunk room. But to slide this thing back, there's a little of a release handle. It's not a handle that pulls up, it's just basically a loop that you pull, and you can recline back. Now, this has a lot of adjustability. Now, I can sit basically virtually straight up, and I can tilt this all the way back, but in between, there's about 5 different adjustments, versus on a Q5, there's only 2. So I can pivot this way, pivot all the way back. So, and there's a lot of headroom. I mean, I am only 5'9", and this is the headroom I have. I'm sitting as far forward as I can, so let's move this back. And there's a lot of leg room. So I will show you how I sit in the front, and I have about 3.5 inches of leg room here. And in terms of headroom, I have probably about 2 and a little bit, 2.5 to 3. I'd say more than 2.5. So there is definitely room in the back here. Is it as wide as a Q5? No, but it's definitely longer than the old generation Q3. All right, so on the exterior of this Audi Q3, this version has the S-Line model on it. So the front and rear bumpers are different. It's got different wheels, a bit of a body kit, and the front grille is massive on this new Q3, but it actually does widen the car than the old one. The old one looked a little bit too small. This one's widening up. The front headlight is definitely different than the Q5. What they've done actually, they've pulled some of this angling lighting in from the Audi e-tron, and the Audi e-tron basically goes horizontal, and these guys go a bit on a diagonal. But essentially the headlight design is changed when compared to the Q5. All right, so let's get some first impressions on what I think on the inside of this car. So when I open the door and I pull the handle, finally, they use a proper door handle. The Q5 door handles pull upward, and I hate them. I just like door handles that pull straight out, which is awesome. So they've made some major changes to this door panel. A few things here. One is this has ambient lighting, so there is a strip of color, whether you can change it. There's 30 different colors you can pick. Right now it's in blue. Also this handle. This is an upside down handle, but this is genius. Because when most people open handles, you're pulling it this way. This one, you simply put your finger in and just pull. This is another genius feature Audi put on this Q3. They have rear child locks. In a car this small, you think that they would not offer this feature, but by simply pressing this button, you lock the windows and the doors of the left side or the right side of the back seats. On this Q3, we have two unique storage compartments. Underneath the driver's side, you have a storage compartment for the owner's manual, and on the passenger side, you have a small compartment for trash or any other small items you'd like to place. On this segment of vehicle, you generally don't get aluminum pedals, but on a Q3 now they're offering aluminum pedals on an S-Line model. For some reason, we always picked either the windiest day, the coldest day, or the hottest day to shoot videos, and I'm sweating bullets wearing all black. But hey man, anything for you guys and girls. First impressions on the inside, wow, has Audi done an awesome job with this car. And I'm not saying that because I'm an Audi fan, I'm saying that because this is something that I've not seen from Audi. They mix materials better than anybody in the industry, but this time they're mixing angles and materials that make it slightly different. So in terms of mixing materials, they're mixing a rubberized dash, black polished trim, a gray trim, aluminum appearing trim, stainless steel trim, more rubberized dash, polished aluminum, gloss black aluminum. So a lot of this car is pulled from the new generation of Audi product, and that's usually from a Q8, A6, A7. So it's nice to see some of that hand-me-downs in a Q3, and they've really done an awesome job with the tech on this car. All right, so the virtual cockpit on the Q3 and the Q5 are slightly different. They have a slightly different layout. However, the pixels of quality are very similar, with the exception of Google Earth. This is far cleaner than a Q5. There is nothing in this segment that competes with this Q3. So in this specific version, it has an S-Line steering wheel, which is flat bottom, so you do not get a heated steering wheel, which is pretty normal for the US and Canadian market. Everything on this car is different than a Q5, with the exception of the HVAC controls. In terms of the sunroof, what's different about the Q3 here is not the fact that it's panoramic, but it's the sunshade. The sunshade in the Q5 actually is slightly opaque, so it actually does let some light in. But in a Q3, it's completely not see-through, or correct me if I'm wrong, it's completely not transparent. Or what's the word I'm looking for? Concrete? No.
Just leave it.
So again, I'm really, really impressed with Audi's detailed navigation system, their detailed fit and finish. There are some spots here that I'm seeing like, well, why did you put this here? So here's one. So where the start button is a good spot, I just feel like the volume button was placed there after the fact. It was an afterthought. Generally, volume buttons should be somewhere around here, in this position here, or closer here, or maybe here. I don't know, I feel like there is just a little bit too far. I know that I can reach the steering wheel, but I can reach the passenger side HVAC controls before I can reach the volume controls. And most people are going to use the volume controls more often than they're going to use the passenger thermostat. Perfect. So steering wheel is tilt and telescopic like the Q5. All the controls are pretty much exactly the same as all Audis. The lane assist, the wipers, the cruise control, that's all very typical. Armrest is fully adjustable. You can set the height of where you want it. The same amount of heights. There's 5 different heights on the armrest. It goes in and out. Like most Audis, there is a lack of storage space. However, they did add a few pieces here. They did add a deeper coin tray, and the glove box is actually a little bit deeper than the old one by about ½ an inch. One thing I do like though now is the wireless charging. You can simply just take your phone and you can put it right here and it charges up. All right, so the Q3 offers 4 charging ports. 1 USB-C in the front, 1 regular USB in the front, and 2 USBs in the back for the kids. So I've always picked on the things that this car Q3 doesn't offer in terms of quality, but one thing I did notice that they spent money on is the back panel right here. Generally, this piece is not looked at with detail, but they did actually match it all the way through this black gloss trim, which is like, hey, we're actually thinking about a few things. Forgot a few things, but thinking about a few things. So in the Q3, they've actually pulled the CD player. So all Q5s still come with a CD player hidden in the glove box. In this Q3, it's gone. They just have an SD card and a SIM card. Well, I mean, you do have wireless everything, and you have 4 ports, so why do you need a CD player? Q5, we're talking to you. Audi's moving towards a lot of touch haptic features, so what they did do, which incorporates part of the Q5, is the reading lights and the map lights. They're all touch, and they're dimmable too. So you hold it down, and it dims. All right, so in terms of the screen and the user interface here, it's very, very easy to use. The only complaint I have, since Audi hasn't been a touch screen manufacturer before, is the fingerprints. The fingerprints are crazy. You really need to build something here. So for all my Amazon FBA guys, can build some sort of wiping cloth here that I can automatically wipe this screen and then place it back here. Anyways, very easy to use, radio, media, phone, navigation, and I can move some of these things around because I might want to pull news and messages and weather to the front and get rid of settings and shortcuts, but it's very easy to use. So if I wanted to, say, change the radio station, I could either hit that button or hit radio, and it's very easy. And one thing I do like here is I like the fact that it shows you the songs that it's playing as opposed to going to that radio station to listen to see what it's listing. I can go through all the radio stations and see what music I want to listen to. So boom, I want to hit classic rewind, I just hit it and it comes up. And I can set these as presets, but it's very, very easy to use. I can go to settings, and now the sun's out in full swing and I still have perfect visibility on this screen. But it's just super easy to use, and the colors just pop. Like, even if you look at the Sirius XM Hits 1, even the little blue rings around the 1 are very, very clear and distinct. There's your media, very easy to use. Your telephone to connect a device is super simple. You hit connect mobile devices, it'll find the devices in the area, and bam, you're connected. But here is the meat and potatoes. This navigation is awesome. This Google Earth is awesome. You can see what kind of roofs are on different buildings. You can see what cars are parked in different buildings. It's not live, but at least you know how much parking spots there are, and you can connect which streets connect to each other, which people have pools, kind of creepy, but still amazing nonetheless. And you can change the view whether you want to have it overhead or 3D as it is right now. In terms of searching for an address, again, super easy. I press a search button. Parking, restaurant, gas stations, super simple. I hit restaurants, and all the restaurants will come that are around me, and that is awesome. Very easy, very quick, which I like to see. If I make a mistake, I just simply put my finger and it cleans it up. I can use Google when I'm connected and basically ask it anything. I can use this little feature here where I can just write in whatever I want. So like I do in the other videos, I'll make this really fast. And the whole screen actually becomes a touchpad. Boom, Toronto. Very easy to use, and it's super fast. If I make a mistake, I can just wipe my hand here, and there we go, it goes away. But again, the only thing I would say is the fingerprints are pretty bad, and well, somebody needs to make something here, we can just wipe it off very easily. Audi does give you a cloth, but I wouldn't say it's bulky, but it's just not an easy thing to place somewhere. So if somebody can make something that clips onto here where you can just wipe it off very easily, then bam. So I want 5% royalties for that idea, thank you very much. When I put it into gear, the lighting and the bulbs that are actually behind here, and it's not very bright out, it's actually overcast. I actually can't see what gear I'm in when I look down. Obviously I do know what gear I've put it in, but in terms of lighting, that lighting should have been red, I think, just to know what gear you're in, because I get a lot of times people want to know what gear they're in, or they look down, they don't know exactly what gear they're in. So that's something new. Also, this shifter kind of feels a little light, a little plasticky, but at the same time, it is not $50,000. It is at a starting price of $30, in the 30s. So anyways, first impression driving it, gas, steering, feels very Audi. This part it's actually quite peppy off the line here. So right now I'm in drive and comfort, and it's pretty good. Feels solid. Feels like a Q5. Feels pretty solid. Definitely it's trending. I mean, I've only driven it for the last 10 seconds, but it's definitely trending more towards a Q5 than it is the old school or the old generation Q3. Steering wheel is very familiar. It's your typical S-line steering wheel. It's a little bit wider, but it's actually kind of like an R8 steering wheel. It is very R8-ish, the steering wheel. They did a great job with the steering wheel. The seat steering wheel, visually what I look at is beautiful. I think I talked a little bit about the HVAC controls, but the HVAC controls are from an A3, which is a smart idea because the old generation had like a click, 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 click. Every half a degree you had to click, and if you held it, it would take about 2 seconds for it to react, for it to move faster than half a degree. But this one's just a quick turn. You can switch temperatures really fast. I know it's a small thing, but when you're trying to change temperatures, when you're either boiling hot or freezing cold, it's rather annoying to go click, 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 click all the time. So my visibility is very good. It is definitely obviously bulkier than the old generation Q3, so I'm sitting more, one of the things I do obviously notice in SUVs, I'm kind of sitting more 90 degrees. I'm not sitting like a car where you're kind of lying down. This still feels like I'm sitting up straight. I'm not exactly lying down, so that feel is the same. Steering is definitely more lighter and a little bit more floaty than the old generation Q3, which is sort of the new trend. People don't really want to feel their cars anymore. They just want to kind of feel something more floaty. I feel like the German cars are getting a bit more floaty and less mechanical, and that's exactly what this thing is doing. But right now my eyes is really focused on the road, but more so on this interior and this dash. Like this dash layout is awesome to look at. Like this Google Maps are awesome to look at. And when I try to pivot in and actually pivot sideways and then focuses in, it doesn't just go in, it pivots on where I'm driving to and then focuses in. That's awesome to see. Radio, easy controls to press. Even when I'm driving, I can still see stuff. I could use the dash behind, but this is just so nice that I just like to click it and touch it. Audi drivers are not really used to having touch products. It's always turn and click. So having a touch product is really nice. Rear view mirror, good visibility, left and right. Even when they shifted the mirrors, it's probably easier to look at actually now that they've made the mirrors a little bit lower. Braking feels good. It's kind of hard to test it in comfort, so I'm just going to shift it in dynamic. So it makes 226 horsepower, which is a whopping 26 horsepower more than the old one, but I'm sure that it add a little bit of weight to make it kind of null and void, but it does definitely feel a little faster than the old generation. It feels more nimble, and as I get into some turns here, I can tell you how the turns sort of feel compared to the old one, or compared to a Q5. So in terms of what it feels like to a Q5, the Q5 is definitely a little bit smoother. This is smooth, but the Q5 is just a little bit smoother with a slightly longer platform, but it's very, very close. The older generation Q5 feels a bit heavier. The new Q5 feels a little bit lighter, and this kind of has that same feel, the same lightness of cars. Yeah, that's about it. All right, so I pulled in a parking spot, and I'm going to test Audi's automatic parking system here. And it's basically just a button you hit, and it'll show you where the parking spot is going to be. So you pull up where the empty spot is, and then this comes up. And it tells you, please select reverse and take your hands off the steering wheel. Watch the steering wheel. So the steering wheel automatically turns for you. This is a pretty tight parking spot, so I'd be pretty impressed if it makes this here. So all I'm doing is just slightly taking my foot off the brake, not touching the steering wheel. It's beeping. It's not telling me to do anything here. I'm assuming I have to put it in forward here. Okay, now it turns me the other way. Straightens me out. I put in reverse. And it's lining me up. And yeah, we got it. Awesome, look at that. And this is a tight parking spot. And I'm talking super tight. As in, like, I can literally touch this guy's car. Yeah, I can literally touch his car. And if you look on that side, Ian can literally touch his car. Literally. So this is a very tight parking spot. One thing I did notice though, okay, so now I haven't touched the steering wheel yet, and it's still doing its thing and moving. So I think it's trying to correct me one more time. Yep, it's trying to correct me one more time right here. So now it says hit the brake and reverse. There we go. So now it's corrected me again. Perfect. That's automatic parking for you. So the tech in this car is what makes it in my mind. This exterior styling is great. Extra size is awesome. It is plenty peppy enough. You don't need any more power than this. Sometimes with these smaller 4-cylinders, they just don't have the initial power when you hit the gas, but that's something you can get used to. So sometimes people will say, especially when it comes from 6-cylinders, they'll think there's not enough power, but there is if it's just driven and you know what to expect from the motor and the transmission. But in terms of speed, like I just pressed the view button to change the cluster here, and if I hit it fast, you'll see how fast this thing is. Like it's instant in terms of like response time, and I mean that's stuff like that for me that makes the car. I mean the drive's important, all that stuff, but the fact that like something's there when you want to hit it and it works right away, it's awesome. But it's also smart. So when you turn the heating all the way up and it's cold outside and the engine's cold, it's not going to give you any heat. What it's going to do is it's just going to slowly bring the heat in. And I mean, it's just those type of things that you expect out of a luxury car, which they do put in a car like this. And it's peppy enough. I mean, it is, yeah, it's like the noise is there. And that's what you need. You don't want a super quiet car. So another thing I want to talk about is the seats. I talked about the seats and how great they are, yada, yada, yada. But these seats are actually pretty much Q5 seats, which is pretty sweet because generally in a Q3 you don't get stuff from a Q5. But this is like, so it's like, how does the Q5 kind of overlay in a Q3? And I think maybe for the smoothness part of it, the Q5 just edges this car out a little bit more. Not much, but a little bit more. In terms of like the real fine details, the Q5 is a little bit nicer. You can see they spent a little bit of money, but that really doesn't mean a whole lot when this technology trumps it. So in this current space, I think if I was going to buy a Q3 or a Q5 and I had, you know, between $40,000 and $50,000 to spend, I'd probably be buying a Q3 because the Q3 is good enough just around town. It's peppy enough. If I was sitting on the highway doing, you know, 100 miles a day, then I'd probably want a Q5 because it's a little bit smoother. Or if I need the extra space in the back seat. So one thing I didn't talk about is off camera I measured exactly how much room this compared to the older generation Q3, and it's really the trunk space was the same essentially when the seats were all the way back in this 2019 model, but the back seats is really where the difference was. The back door is 2 inches longer and the back seat space is about 2 inches longer. So that's really where most of the space comes into play, is the back seats. And inside it just feels a lot wider. They actually just built out the doors with some more cavities here, so it looks like there's more space, and it just feels that way. The dash is longer, so it just feels bigger than the current generation Q3. But in terms of a Q5, when I'm sitting in here now, this dash really just gets my heart. I just love the fact that, as I said, they put the Q8, A8 stuff in here, and they really just pulled, and then when they said they're going to do a new car, this is what they did. They brought us a new car. So I'm happy for that. Thank you, Audi. Hope you liked this video. It wasn't super in-depth. I want to do one that's just specifically on Q3, but hopefully this gives you some comparison now that we just got this car.